Florida scientists hope that these fluffy decoys can help with a very real problem.
Yeah, Burmese pythons have devastated native wildlife in the Everglades.
At sunrise in the Everglades, the grass stirred with something uncanny. Dozens of soft, twitching rabbits stood perfectly still, yet none were alive.
Scientists have deployed 120 robot rabbits.
Powered by sunlight and engineered for deception, these lifelike machines shared one chilling purpose: to hunt the Everglades' most unstoppable predator. Everglades under siege. At sunrise, the Florida Everglades glows like a living mirror, sawgrass shimmering over slow water, herons standing still as statues. Yet beneath that beauty lies one of America's most devastated ecosystems, locked in a decades-long war against an invader that slithers, hunts, and never stops. The Burmese python, a predator born in Southeast Asia, has transformed Florida's wetlands into its own empire. The invasion didn't start as an act of nature, but as a human mistake. During the 1980s and 1990s, the exotic pet trade boomed. Baby pythons, glossy and docile, were sold as harmless pets until they grew. Within a few years, many reached 15 to 20 feet, strong enough to crush a deer or an alligator. Unprepared owners began releasing them into canals and swamps. Then came 1992. Hurricane Andrew tore through South Florida, shattering reptile facilities and freeing countless snakes into the wild. Those escapes seeded the population that would later engulf the Everglades. It was paradise for a python. Endless prey, warm waters, and no natural predators. With the ability to lay up to 100 eggs a year, the population exploded. Today, biologists estimate tens of thousands roam South Florida. The damage has been catastrophic. In areas dominated by pythons, raccoons, opossums, and rabbits have nearly vanished. Even deer and bobcats are disappearing. One python was found with an entire deer inside its stomach. Another was filmed battling an alligator. Both died. The loss of small mammals disrupts the entire food web. Birds of prey lose their meals. Scavengers vanish. The balance of soil nutrients shifts. The Everglades' fragile system is breaking down. Marsh rabbits once filled the wetlands. Now, vast regions are silent. Hunters wade through chest-deep water, guided by drones and flashlights, yet for every python they catch, many more hatch unseen. Millions have been spent on bounties, removal programs, and research. But the serpents keep winning. The pythons have adapted perfectly. Humans are running out of options, and as temperatures rise, scientists warn these predators could move north, spreading their empire beyond Florida. Bounties, hype, and hard math. When officials realized how unstoppable the python invasion had become, they did what humans often do when facing chaos. They turned it into a competition. In 2013, Florida launched the first ever Python Challenge, an open call to anyone brave enough to step into the swamp. The idea was simple: train citizens, send them hunting for a month, and pay for every captured snake. The response was explosive. Over 1,600 people from across the country joined in, armed with airboats, machetes, and flashlights strapped to their foreheads. TV crews followed, transforming the wetlands into a surreal mix of survival show and wildlife war zone. But beneath the excitement lay harsh reality. After weeks of grueling effort, the total haul was just 68 snakes, barely a scratch against an estimated population in the tens of thousands. Undeterred, officials made the Python Challenge an annual event, offering bigger prizes and better training. Hunters adapted, using night vision and thermal scopes. Some caught dozens, even record-sized pythons over 17 feet long. But the data never lied. For every snake removed, more hatched unseen. Mathematicians confirmed the population curve would only rise. So, Florida changed tactics. In 2017, the South Florida Water Management District launched the Python Elimination Program, a professional, full-time operation. Licensed hunters earned hourly wages and bonuses by the foot. They prowled dark canals in boats, scanning for ripples under the moonlight. It was dangerous, exhausting work, but for a while, it worked. Each year, hunters captured more snakes. Yet the overall numbers didn't fall. The swamp was too vast, too perfect a hiding place. Millions of dollars were spent chasing serpents across 1.5 million acres. Even new tech like Judas snakes, tagged pythons used to track others, made little difference. By the end of the 2010s, one truth had become impossible to ignore. No amount of manpower could outmatch a predator built to vanish. Dogs that sniff the unseen. When bounty programs failed, wildlife managers realized they needed a hunter that didn't rely on sight or luck, but instinct. In 2020, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission tried something radical. Send dogs into the swamp to track snakes by smell. 2 canines led the experiment: Truman, a black Labrador with the patience of a soldier, and Eleanor, a sharp Dutch shepherd bred for focus. They were trained for months to recognize the faint, musky odor Burmese pythons leave behind, an invisible trail no human could detect. Trainers hid snakes in crates, weeds, and under logs until the dogs found them every time. In the field, Truman and Eleanor worked on long leads while handlers followed with GPS trackers. Their success was immediate. Within weeks, they uncovered several large snakes that had eluded human hunters for months. Truman's tail stiffened. Eleanor froze mid-step. Moments later, flashlights caught the slow ripple of scales. The dogs were finding pythons in minutes that biologists had missed for hours. But victories came at a price. The Everglades punished them with heat, humidity, and danger. Sawgrass tore their paws, and alligators lurked nearby. Handlers kept them in cooling vests, boots, and constant hydration. Still, they pressed on, revealing a crucial discovery. Each scent trail led not just to a snake, but to clusters of eggs and hidden nests. For the first time, scientists could map the snake's breeding zones. Yet, 2 dogs couldn't cover 1.5 million acres. Expanding the program would demand hundreds of teams and millions in funding. Truman and Eleanor had proven one truth: creative methods worked, but instinct alone couldn't save the Everglades. From live bait to blueprint. Desperation breeds innovation, and sometimes controversy. After years of failed hunts, scientists knew they needed to understand what pythons wanted most. The answer was simple and unsettling: marsh rabbits. Once abundant in the Everglades, they'd nearly vanished under the python invasion. The question became unavoidable: could live rabbits lure pythons from hiding? Early experiments placed rabbits in protective enclosures designed to release heat and scent, but keep them safe. Within weeks, the results stunned researchers. Over 20 snakes approached the pens in a single test site. The rabbits, terrified but unharmed, had become magnets for one of the most elusive predators on Earth. The data was undeniable, but the ethics were not. Footage of trembling rabbits surrounded by constrictors sparked outrage from animal welfare groups and even some scientists. Critics called the trials barbaric, arguing no invasive species justified endangering innocent animals. Public pressure mounted, and funding for live bait research was swiftly withdrawn. Yet that controversy revealed a critical insight. It wasn't the animals themselves that mattered, it was the stimuli. Heat, scent, and movement triggered the python's hunting response. So, engineers and biologists joined forces to replicate those exact cues without using living creatures. They studied how pythons detect prey, infrared signatures, thermal contrast, and the musky odor of mammal fur, and translated them into data points for machines. From that collaboration came a prototype, unlike anything Florida had tried before: synthetic decoys that could radiate heat, release a scent compound, and mimic a rabbit's twitching movements. Outfitted with sensors and cameras, each could record encounters in real time, turning bait into a tool for research and capture. The stage was set for a new phase of the hunt, one that blurred the line between biology and robotics. Robo-rabbits in the wild. When Florida's first wave of robotic rabbits arrived in the Everglades, few believed it would work. At sunrise, the decoys looked almost comical: soft-furred figures ringed with wires, sensors, and solar panels glinting in the mist. Yet beneath that odd exterior was years of frustration, research, and millions in funding. These were no toys. They were the state's last hope against an invisible empire. Each unit was a triumph of design, weatherproof polymers covered in synthetic fur, layered with thermal pads that radiated a lifelike heat signature. Tiny scent emitters released compounds mimicking rabbit musk, drifting through the reeds. Even the ears twitched, driven by silent micromotors. Hidden inside were motion-triggered cameras and transmitters that alerted biologists miles away whenever something slithered near. Solar power kept them alive for weeks. Anchored in protective pens, they could survive storms, raccoons, and curious gators. Their purpose wasn't to kill pythons, but to expose them, luring the predators into monitored zones where capture teams could strike. When the first 120 units were deployed, expectations were low. But almost immediately, cameras captured the unimaginable. Massive pythons approaching, tongues flicking, bodies gleaming under moonlight. Some attacked outright, wrapping around the decoys. Others circled cautiously before vanishing. The data transformed the fight. Each activation became a point on a digital map of python activity, revealing breeding zones, travel corridors, and active hours. The decoys had evolved into both bait and surveillance network. Still, the cost was steep, around $4,000 per unit, and the Everglades' heat and humidity tested their limits. Yet something had shifted. For the first time in decades, researchers felt on a fence. Beneath the quiet waters, a hum of hidden motors whispered a rare kind of hope. The Everglades has been quiet for years, but that silence now hums with possibility. Beneath the reeds, machines disguised as life are fighting back. Did Florida finally outsmart nature, or just teach technology how to hunt? Subscribe for more stories where science and survival collide.